Blog Talk Radio.
93. County 23, I'll give you a correction to drive, but you do have a fire in a one-story ordinary. Looks like it's about 40 by 120, 125. We'll get to traffic control. Squad 5, Squad 5. Over to 273, 273. Over Battalion 18, 18th Battalion. With the 273, 273.
Hey everybody, welcome to Fire Engineering Talk Radio and another installment of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. It is Tuesday, September 10th. Tom Merrill here, glad to have you with me. And hey, I'm back with you live tonight because two of my previous shows, I had to pre-record them. I think it was back in May, back in June. Had to pre-record two shows due to my paid job actually interfering with the volunteer side of thing and doing these blog talk radio shows. My paid job actually got in the way working at the fire alarm office where is my paid job, where I pick up the paycheck, and I had to do a couple overtime shifts, and so I pre-recorded the shows, and it actually worked out really well. I'm going to probably have to pre-record a couple more looking down the road at my schedule unless I can work out six-way switches and things that we do just to make everything fit in. But it worked out, and I hated to do that at the last minute the last time to the great folks at Fire Engineering who sponsor these shows, which, by the way, I know you know this, but if you don't, I'm just going to point out the obvious. There's a lot of great blog talk radio shows that Fire Engineering sponsors, and I'm humbled and honored that you listen in to mine, and I hope you get a chance to listen into so many of the great other shows, and I hope you have the challenge I do, and that's trying to fit them all in and when you're running or working out or mowing the lawn or working around the house, whatever it is. But I want to thank you for being here with us live tonight. Or if you pre-record it and listen down the road, that's great too. Thank you for listening in. I'm honored that you do. I'm honored with the emails and feedback I get from so many people out there expressing support for our message here. And I hope you've all had a great summer. Fall is getting here quick. Beautiful day here in Buffalo, New York, where I am. Absolutely beautiful and sunny and 80 degrees, which was unusual because the last few days have been cooler. It's already cooling down here, especially at night, but today was gorgeous, and I finished closing my pool, which is a sad statement. In our Buffalo area, we maybe get a pool use in June, July, August, and by Labor Day weekend, we're closing it up, and I finished doing that today. And next it's putting all the furniture away, and I wonder what it's like to live somewhere. Maybe you listeners out there do live somewhere where you don't have to put the furniture away that's on your patio and then bring it out again every spring. It's something we get used to doing here, and that's what I'm doing right now. But hey, couple housekeeping notes for you all. It's not too early to start thinking about the greatest fire service show in the world, and of course I'm talking about FDIC 2020, which this year, or I should say next year in 2020, will be April 20th to the 25th in Indianapolis. So start making plans now. If it would happen to be your first time, I guarantee you will not be disappointed. And if you've attended any of the past shows, you know you're already looking forward to the next show because it truly is second to none in terms of classroom training, hands-on training, the networking. I talk about this all the time. My gosh, the networking where you can hang out and talk shop with firefighters and leaders and fire officers from all over the world. All over the world. You mingle and talk. There's no egos. You run into some of the rock stars of our fire service, from the top rock star, Chief Bobby Halton, Chief Rick Lasky, Chief John Salka, so many others. They will stop. They will talk to you on a street corner, at the convention center, on the trade show floor. It is second to none. So I highly encourage you to make plans to be there. I am so fortunate to again be coming back, so I want to thank Chief Bobby Halton and Ginger and Diane and all the FDIC Advisory Board members and Clarion Fire Rescue Group for inviting me back to present my 4-hour class. That this show is based on the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. And in 2020, I'll be doing it at FDIC on Tuesday, April 21st from 8 a.m. till noon. And I hope I can see you there. and I'm so excited to be back. I really am. I'm humbled and I'm honored. And, hey, you know what? For the 6th year in a row, Honeywell and DuPont are sponsoring FDIC scholarships for some lucky first responders to attend FDIC. Hey, maybe your budget line at your department doesn't allow for you to send people to FDIC. Maybe you've never been there. This is a great opportunity to get to FDIC. So check it out if you need some help getting there. This is a great way to do it. These scholarships absolutely pay for everything: airfare, lodging, admissions for all the training, including the hands-on training, including the seminars and the exhibits. Everything, folks. You can get all the information you need, and, hey, you can nominate members of your department or people you know who you think are deserving to go to FDIC. Just go to FDICscholarship.com. You can go to Fire Engineering's website. There's an FDIC link, and you can get to the scholarship info from there as well. But, again, if you go FDICscholarship.com, it'll give you all the information you need. It's a fantastic opportunity to get to the greatest show in the world. And, hey, folks, if you do enjoy my professional volunteer fire department show and the articles I've written and my Facebook page, and you do embrace the message that I'm trying to get out there, along with so many of you great people, that being a professional firefighter has nothing to do with earning a paycheck, but everything to do with our attitude, our commitment to the craft, our dedication to duty, treating people right, treating our own members right. Well, I am so excited to tell you, and again, incredibly humbled again, that I was accepted or encouraged to write a book. Penwell sent me a contract and asked me to write a book about professionalism in the professional volunteer department and what we can do to uphold that professional image. So I am so humbled. I'm honored. I'm scared a little bit because this is uncharted territory for me. But I can't believe I'm going to be joining the long list of fantastic and absolute legendary Penwell Fire Service authors who have done so much on behalf of our great fire service. And I can't believe I'm lucky enough to maybe be able to put my thoughts on into a book and get it published by this great company. So it's a huge undertaking. I'm just now in the beginning stages of it. I'll keep you posted on my progress. It's just an incredible opportunity for me. But I want to just sell the message, and that message is being professional is so much more than earning a paycheck. I'm honored, and I pledge to do my very best to represent Penwell and Clarion Fire Rescue and all the other great authors that have written books to the very best of my ability. And I've also been so busy. I just told my wife at dinner tonight, sometimes there's not enough time in the day, but that's okay. You know, what's the alternative, right? You'll be bored. So I'm putting together a webinar presentation. The great folks at Columbia Southern University asked me to put a webinar together discussing professional development for firefighters, and a little twist on it, too. We put a twist on it for leadership and fire officers as well. So professional development for firefighters as well as company officers. And I want to thank the great folks at Columbia Southern University for that honor. It's my first foray into a webinar, and I'll get additional information out there, put it on my Facebook page when I do get some more information. It should be going up the end of the month, the end of September. And for those who aren't familiar with CSU, check it out. Columbia Southern University, great resource, an online university that offers a wide range of accreditation degree programs and helps people that have crazy schedules because they're very flexible, and it's a great university for those of us in the emergency services. And I want to thank them, and I want to thank my good friend Keith Patchett and all the great folks at CSU, Brittany Fillmore, Anthony Cornelius, Sharon Shackelford, all the other folks there that have helped me and are encouraging me and asked me to do this. And that should be going up the end of the month, and I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to it greatly. And a couple other quick things to talk about tonight. Fire Prevention Week. Be remiss if we didn't talk about that, right? We are in the fire service after all, right? And Fire Prevention Week this year running from October 6th to October 12th. And the theme this year, not every hero wears a cape. Plan and practice your escape. Focusing on what home escape plan is all about and the value of practicing it. And it's important for all ages. One thing they're pointing out is people tend to be overconfident in their home and really underestimate the danger of fire. Complacency sets in, and you know what, folks? we're still killing 3,000 people a year roughly in house fires. So it is important that we get the message out to be aware of the things you can do to maybe limit your danger in your house and have home escape plans. And, one thing they're pointing out, too, is you're more likely to die. This sounds crazy. It's 2019, but you know what? You're more likely to die in a house fire if you have a fire in your home than you were in 1980, because the fires are burning so much hotter, so much faster, and leaving less time for the occupants to escape. It's very real, and I think sometimes we get complacent in the fire service too, because maybe we're not running as many fires. We're certainly running a lot more calls maybe than we used to and emergency responses, but maybe our fires are down. But folks, 3,000 people are still dying every year in house fires. And the statistics are showing the fires are hotter and growing faster than ever before, limiting our time to escape. So an important message to get out. Not every hero wears a cape. Plan and practice your escape. So what are you doing for fire prevention this year? I'm hoping that you're getting out to the schools. I'm hoping you're doing fire prevention talks at community centers and talking to your public. I recommend you do something, right? Open your doors. Maybe have an open house. Talk fire safety, fire prevention. Get to know your residents. Let your residents get to know you. Showcase your professionalism. Showcase your equipment. You can talk to the residents about what do you like about our service? What can we do better? Did you know we need to replace this 25-year-old pumper? And we're working with our town leaders right now to try and get that in the budget. Maybe you can help. Showcase your professionalism. Get out and get engaged and involved with your community. And fire prevention season is a great time to do that. And if you need some materials, there's all sorts of materials online that you can get to help discuss fire safety, fire prevention, and the theme this year. National Fire Protection Association, NFPA.org, is a great one, but there's tons more. You can just go online and Google that, and there's some great resources out there. But the bottom line is you can't ignore it. It's a great chance to showcase your professionalism and show your community you're concerned, you're engaged, and their local firehouse is staffed by professional firefighters. Another thing to be aware of, just another way to connect with your community and demonstrate your ongoing efforts to serve and protect them and do some truly great things that, again, showcase your professionalism. Hey, be aware that this month, the month of September, is National Preparedness Month. There's a lot of information that maybe I'll put a link to it on my Facebook page. But the bottom line is, it's an event that's put together by the government, by FEMA, and that for our residents to be better prepared in case there's an emergency in their area. There's a lot of things that they can do to be prepared and to help their community and have things ready to go in case there is an emergency. And there's different themes each week, and you can put that on your social media page, your Facebook page, your website, showing, hey, community members, here's some things you can do to help yourself out. National Preparedness Month, the month of September, and another way to show that you are doing great things in your volunteer fire department, and you can generate some great PR. And you're keeping your name out there, too, which is also really, really important. Hey, speaking of being prepared, we certainly were reminded again last week as Hurricane Dorian came rumbling up the East Coast after absolutely blasting the Bahamas, and our hearts certainly go out to the people affected by Dorian, especially in the Bahamas. Those photos and videos that are coming out of the Bahamas are just heartbreaking. It's such a bad situation there. I know there's a lot of emergency responders there that are helping out. We wish them all the best. We pray for their safety. But as the hurricane was coming up the coast, agencies certainly had to be prepared for that unknown, right? Where was it going to make landfall? Even if it doesn't make landfall, communities still had to worry and be prepared for wind and the rain. And because first responders could easily be overwhelmed, people also had to be prepared and take care of themselves and their families. But that storm was, again, a powerful reminder of the importance of National Preparedness Month, and for all of us, really, to be better prepared for when these types of things happen in our communities. Heck, there's no signs that there's any laws, right? Just last year we had to deal with Florence and some others, so we'd all be wise, wouldn't we, to be just a little better prepared as emergency responders as well as citizens in our community. I know one thing I did this summer at my own house is put a backup generator in, and I made it simple to use because I'll probably, if we get a storm, which for us, we get some windstorms, but blizzards are our big weather event here in the Buffalo area, which, by the way, we love blizzards. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit when we talk with our guest about preparedness, because I'll take a blizzard any day. But I put a generator in, made it easy for my family to operate in case I'm at the alarm office, and now they'll be taken care of if, God forbid, our power goes out for a while. They'll at least have a furnace, and they'll have lights, and some of the main circuits will be powered. So that's the thing I did this year to be better prepared. And with us tonight, coincidentally, as we talk about Dorian and Florence and weather events, happens to be a fire chief from the North Carolina region. I'm happy to have on the show tonight Battalion Chief Richard Ray, who's in the Durham, North Carolina Fire Department. I think that's a paid department, but he also has a lot of volunteer experience as well as a member of the Creedmoor Volunteer Fire Department, which is a little north of Durham. Is that correct, Chief? Are you with me? And welcome to the show, by the way.
First of all, thank you for having me. And yes, sir, we're about 10 miles northwest of the city of Durham. But a little small town fire department that's it's growing. It's we've over my short career in the volunteer side, we've gone from a population of around 2,000 as a farming community to now we're more of a bedroom community, and we're about a 10,000 population now. So we're growing, but it's a little town just northwest of Durham, and I've been fortunate enough to have worked for the city of Durham as a career firefighter, and my blood runs deep in on the volunteer side in the aspect of kind of a legacy, if you will, being a third-generation firefighter. So thank you for having me on the show. And you talk about preparedness and the hurricanes coming through, and where you're from, y'all deal with snow. We don't do so well with snow here in North Carolina from time to time. It's like the world shuts down when it snows just an inch or so. But hurricanes. Last year we had Florence, and I believe the second one was Michael that come through in October, I believe it was, that we felt the effects from. And the preparation on the front end of the event is so critical to how you survive it and sustain it and make it through. Much like you, I've tried to do a lot of things to prepare my family, because as you said, it's typical that when a storm comes through, we're not going to be here. We're off doing our thing with the fire department and serving our community. And sometimes we have to make sure that our folks our families are prepared. And so, I've done a lot of the same things I'm sure you have with generators and all that kind of good stuff. But, for us, we're about, 2.5 to 3 hours from the coast, and then of course we're a little bit further from Hatteras and some of those places, but nonetheless, we've experienced some hurricanes that have actually come up through the state and that kind of stuff, and it's really, we've had to really make our response robust and build up what it is that we do in terms of preparation. And at the end of the day, it's one of those deals where you can do all the preparation in the world, but sometimes a little luck goes a long ways, And I'm not sure who coined the phrase. It may have been Chief Dunn, but I think he said, "I'd rather be lucky than good." But if you're good, you have a better chance at being lucky, so to speak. So that's kind of that's kind of how it is with being prepared. You just we've seen a change over the years here through the Piedmont area of the state, and the task force teams that we have now, and the emergency management, and how all that through the state of North Carolina has grew, and really just the resources that we have are just phenomenal now, and pretty humbling to be a part of it. Pretty humbling to see it grow in my career. And, who knows what the future holds. I mean, just the sky's the limit, if you will, in terms of how we can grow as emergency services in serving our community. So,
yeah, I guess you could say out of some tragedies and some horrible weather events, a lot of good has come out of it as far as the resources that have been made available and experience, right? You learn from experience, and if anyone, by the way, I want to mention, if anyone has questions for Chief Ray about anything we talk about tonight, including preparedness for these types of weather events, please give us a call at 760-454-8852 if anyone would like to call in. Again, the number 760-454-8852. If you have any questions at all for the Chief about preparedness and things they've done, or like I said, some of the other things we're going to launch into tonight. But so, Chief, you have experience, obviously, Durham, paid department. You're a battalion chief there?
Yeah, yes, sir. I've been a battalion chief, a promoted battalion chief now for almost 2 years.
Great.
We had some vacancies, so I was in what we refer to as an acting position for a year. So I've been in the car now. We call it the car in Durham, or you can call it a chief's buggy, whatever, if you will. I've been riding that now for about 3 years, but that's on the career side. But I still get to I still get to do some of the things I love on the volunteer side of the house. I still get to ride the big red trucks, if you will, and still get to do some firefighter things. And you know, for me, that's huge because I'm a big believer that, you know, whatever rank I may achieve in the fire service, whether it's a driver through a chief, the fire chief, at the end of the day, we're all firefighters. And you know, my skill set has got to reflect that. And so to be able to practice my skills in terms of real world application on the volunteer side is I still love it. I don't get to quite do it as much when I'm at work, because I have to a little more direction, a little more leadership on the Fireground versus actually having some hands-on the volunteer side. So,
yeah,
you know, when I'm in Creedmoor, it's a lot of fun because I can stretch lines and force doors and do some of those things that attracted me to the job years ago. So that's right.
Well,
that's
I think it was the Marines. I'm a big history buff and I read a lot, but I think it was the Marines that teach you, you know, when someone joins the Marines, no matter where they go, whatever course and whatever job they're going to do, they still learn how to shoot a rifle. They're still a rifle. Used to call it rifleman, but I guess rifleman or riflewoman first and foremost.
That's right.
So you're still a firefighter, no matter what position you happen to be carrying, and whether it's paid or volunteer. And why don't you take us through your fire service journey? How did you get involved? Did you start as a volunteer first and then get into? Give us a little bit of background and how you got involved in the fire service and your journey so far.
Sure. My fire service journey is probably similar to a lot of firefighters in the service today. I was very fortunate as a child. I grew up around the volunteer fire service. My grandfather was chief in Creedmoor from 1970 to 1979. Then my dad, of course, he joined the fire department as soon as he could. I think he was 20 when he joined the Creedmoor Fire Department, and so I grew up around it. And, you know, my dad, he was chief from 95 to 2016, and he's on his 54th year of volunteer fire service. And
wow,
for
that's
me,
amazing.
what an example, what a mentor that he has been for me. And so as a kid growing up, you know, I loved hanging out with my dad at the fire station. Our meeting nights were Tuesday nights. They still are, and that's when we would do our training, truck checks, all that kind of good stuff. And, you know, as a kid, you know, you're in school, that kind of stuff. I was always hesitant at times to ask him about, hey, can I go with you to the fire station? But as I got older, I got a little more bravery, you know, as kids do. I started going a little bit more, and then I started, like most kids, answering calls with my dad, and I probably shouldn't have been there, but I when I was 16 and 17 years old, I'd hop in the vehicle with him and I would ride, and I couldn't do anything, but I was able to gain some experience that way simply by watching and learning. I was intrigued by the fire service, but part of it too was that I just wanted to be like Dad, and it wasn't until I went to school at East Carolina, great school. Some people would say it's a party school, but nonetheless, it's a great school. And about halfway through my college career, I was back home in Durham at a training conference. I think back then it was called the Tar Heel Fire Conference, and it was something that was put on by the community college here. And that it come to me that weekend. You know what? When I graduate school, I'm going to be a career firefighter, and Durham was where I wanted to go. But I couldn't give up 2 years of college, so I finished my college degree because I wanted to see that through. And I was very fortunate when I graduated college. 2 months after college, I started with the Durham Fire Department, and so I grew in the fire service both as a career firefighter and as a volunteer firefighter. And you talk about parallels in the service. You're absolutely right. Professionalism is the key, whether it's career or volunteer. Your attitude, your commitment to the craft, your commitment to the service. And what's unique is that the volunteer fire service, I think a lot of times the viewpoint that people look at is like, well, they're just volunteers, right? They're giving up their time. But I don't think a lot of people realize that without the volunteer fire service, the vast majority wouldn't have fire coverage. And so to be able to give back to my community and to watch that through my grandfather and my dad, that's really, I guess, what propelled me to actually get outside of Creedmoor and pursue it as a career. But nonetheless, it's about service to others, and
right.
And it's one of those deals where I have been very blessed in my fire service career, especially on the volunteer side. I've been able to do a lot of neat things. I was the training officer for 12, 13 years, something like that in Creedmoor, and I'm an officer in Creedmoor. I'm a captain. I'm not a chief or anything. But, I've been able to – I feel like I've been able to have an integral part of the growth of the Creedmoor Fire Department as we've grown with the times and changed and brought the fire – to be able to see my fire department grow and to see somebody who – comes in to the Creedmoor Fire Department and wants to join because they want to serve their community and inspire them to have passion for the fire service. To be able to see that and I witness that is it's really humbling because you think because again I think about who took time with me when I was a kid, when I was trying to learn, and my roots run deep in the volunteer service and I'm proud of it. But I've been blessed with a great career, and if for some reason I had my career was to end tonight, I could look back on it and say, you know what, I had a great 27 years in the fire service, because I served my community as a volunteer, but two as a career firefighter. So
and you can make a career of your volunteer department too. You could say career of both.
That's exactly right. So, and it's a lot of guys that have. I mean, we're pretty fortunate in Creedmoor. We have 4 father-son teams that's on the fire department. So there's a legacy there in our organization that that sons come up and they they want to follow in their dad's footsteps, and I think that's critical to sustaining our organization. And it's pretty humbling. My son asked me just last week, as a matter of fact, he was asking about we have a junior firefighter program because we're trying to spark that interest early. And he was, I try not to push the fire service on him. I want him to be his own person, but he was asking about it. And so, it's kind of, that the fact that he's expressed an interest in it, and it's like, we're continuing on with the legacy of nothing more than the Creedmoor Fire Department in service to the southern end of the county that we're in. And so it's a
family
pretty
legacy and generations of fire service families serving it's one of the proudest traditions in the volunteer fire service. Family legacy, carrying on the proud tradition and passing on the baton from generation to generation. That's a great thing.
It really is. And Creedmoor is no different than any other volunteer fire department. Or any fire department for that matter. We have our challenges from day to day. We have some growing pains right now, and that we're getting ready to embark upon a ladder company for our fire department, and that's a first for us, but growth is driving it. And, those are good growing pains, right? Because that's how we expand our service. That's how we grow as firefighters and as a department, and it's how we improve our service to the citizens. So it's really a neat gig. So
I got to ask you. We started out just a little bit ago talking, and before I forget, I want to just ask you. As I mentioned, it's National Preparedness Month. So I did want to just talk real quick about, and you mentioned a little bit earlier about really preparing for these crazy hurricanes, because, oh, my God, do they bring a lot of problems. And not just before they arrive, but then, my God, if they strike your area or dealing with all that rain. And I told the chief this when we were talking a few minutes before the show started. I'll take a blizzard any day because snow melts. And if I'm home during a blizzard and I've got some beer in the refrigerator and some fire logs in my fireplace, we're good to go. And there's nothing like sitting here watching a good blizzard and knowing that it's going to melt. How do you prepare for hurricanes? And, like, you got your family and maybe extended family and friends, and then you've got a job to do as a career paid firefighter, and then you got to be worrying about your volunteer firehouse being ready. Where do you start? Holy cow.
So it's all about, in terms of preparation, I have to, with a family, it's all about balance. And I think that's a key component that I think sometimes we don't teach our firefighters, especially volunteer firefighters, is that, you've got to find that balance point of where, all right, you're balancing your job. You got to balance your time at home where you prepare, and then for your family, and then you got to balance that time because there's a need at your fire department, right? Because your community needs you. And then once the event does happen, and now you're dealing with flooding. So, for example, last year when Florence come through, I'm sure you were aware of the flooding on Interstate 40 between here and Wilmington it was horrible. And you've got to wait for water to recede, and then there's all that damage. There's still people today reeling from that storm who are not back in their homes. And so you say, how do you prepare for something like that? And it's almost, I question, can you prepare for that? How do you prepare for a storm to come through and you receive damage to your property, and it's a year later and you're not back in there? I don't know how you make that adjustment. That's really a difficult thing. And it's hard to forecast that too, right? Because just the challenge of the storm, where is it going to go? And so that for us is and that's where that mutual aid piece comes in, because I can tell you there are a lot of North Carolina, we have a lot of volunteer fire departments and a lot of small departments that are dependent upon mutual aid to help them in these large events. And we're so thankful for the task force teams that that we have here in North Carolina, one, that can help us, but two, the ones that come out of state that have come down and helped us over the years. That, having those agreements prior to, that's a critical part of that preparation, and knowing that, okay, if something happens, we have this resource available to us. And that's, I think that's a key to weathering the storm as best you can, is making sure you've got those resources laid out on the front end of the event, so that if A happens, B comes, so to speak, if you will. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely. Have the agreements in place ahead of time. Know that you're not going to be alone. That the FEMA teams are there, the USAR teams are there, and you kind of line that up ahead of time. But are the I know there's a lot of volunteer firehouses, but even in the career departments, paid departments, are the firehouses equipped to handle? What if the flooding's in the volunteer firehouse community? I can't imagine. What do you do if your firehouse floods? Has that happened?
So yes. I mean, that, I'm not sure if that's happened anywhere here in North Carolina, but again, it goes back to, one of the things, like we talked before the show, one of the great things about the fire service is the brotherhood and the sisterhood, and how we kind of look after our own. 23 years ago, Hurricane Fran come right up through the Triangle. One of the fire departments in the northern part of Durham County had a line of duty death from an incident involving one of their members. And the way that the organizations at that time, the way we surrounded that fire department and come in and took calls for them and that kind of stuff, and that was kind of what we did. And I was able to see that last year with Florence, in that we sent crews from Durham down to help staff some of the smaller volunteer departments, so they could simply go take care of their family and stuff there. And so that whole, one of the things that I can say is that I see in the fire service is that when something like that happens, we really come together. And it's that's one of the beautiful aspects of the fire service, whether it's volunteer or career. And so that
So you had some career firefighters from Durham staffing volunteer houses that were so the members could get home and take care of their families.
Yes, sir. We did.
That's incredible. Yeah, that you're not going to see that in some places. That's a great working relationship. That's a respectful relationship. That's a professional relationship. That
Absolutely.
Those two entities can do that. That's commendable. That is very commendable.
So last year, it wasn't just locally that we did it. I mean, we sent a crew down to Carteret County, just outside of, I think it was actually the Newport community, the town of Newport. We sent a crew down there, and they worked down there. I forget how many days they were down there, but, those guys, it took them a day to get there because of all the damage, the trees down, that kind of stuff. But when they got there, their whole purpose was to serve, to answer calls, so that the firefighters there could go take care of their families. And that's, we talk about service and giving back, and that's when I really love the fire service, because you don't see the lines of, volunteer versus career, blah, 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 blah. All that's thrown out the window, and it's true professionalism that you see, and mutual respect, and it's pretty awesome. It really is.
Yeah, because I got to imagine, one of the big concerns is you have these volunteer firefighters, and even in your paid career department, you're taking care of these residents. You're dealing with flooding. You're dealing with storm damage and things like that. But on the back of your mind, you got to be thinking, how's my house making out? How's my family making out?
Exactly. And it's that is a stress that, we talk about it, but until you have that stress where that's on your mind and you're worrying about it, just even in smaller events that happen, like I said earlier, sometimes when we get snow here, it's like it shuts down our area, so to speak. But even with a small event like that, where we change operational modes, that kind of stuff, and responses, things are going on, your mind a lot of times is not necessarily focused on what it is you're doing at the fire department. You're thinking about your family back home. Are their needs being taken care of? What if, and that's where we go back to that whole preparation piece. That's where you have to do your best to make sure they're taken care of. Or if you can't take care of them, do you have somebody who can come in and help you? And I'm pretty blessed with some good neighbors, and but I'm also blessed that my children are a little bit older now, so they can help me get prepared, and that
right.
helps out.
Do you staff the volunteer firehouses before a weather event, or do you just go up there if needed?
So typically, if we have some type of weather event, be it hurricane, be it snow, whatever the case may be, we typically, obviously we have work details where we go and get prepared, and we set things up, and we, of course we want as much membership as we can there, because we adjust our responses too, in terms of which rig we take, the equipment that's on it, how we're going to deal with calls for service, not just necessarily the structure fire call, but what about a call for service, a tree on a power line, for example, or a possible motor vehicle accident, but it's just a vehicle in a ditch. How do we go about addressing that? And so we try and lay that stuff out prior to, and as far as Creedmoor goes, we're doing a little bit better as far as some staffing, some daytime stuff. So usually through the daytime, we're pretty good on staffing, and then at night it's usually when the event happens. Typically we let the guys go back home, be with your family, take care of them, because if there is a need, we're going to need you. And while you're at home, everything's set here at the fire station. Go home and take care of things there, so that if we need you, you can be that member I can count on that's going to be there to help take care of business. And so that's kind of how we do it. We've also in the past with some hurricanes that have come through, we've hey, if it's sustained winds at a certain level, we're not going to go. We'll jot it down, especially if it's a call for service. Obviously, if it's an emergency call of some sort, we go. But if it's like a call for service, we try and list them and we address them as the weather kind of improves or our ability to get out. So that's kind of how we do it. I
never even thought about that. Yeah, you sometimes can't even leave, right? Because the wind's howling so bad. You're not going to be going out in hurricane force winds, or even 60, 70 mile an hour winds, that even 50 mile an hour. You got stuff flying through the air, and it's dangerous.
It is, and it's an eerie feeling when when I was a kid growing up, if a storm come through, the fire department was who everybody called, right? That's and it's still that way today. But if a tree was down across the road, they didn't call the Department of Transportation, anybody. They called the fire department, and the members would show up, and they would bring their personal chainsaws, and guys would work together to clear the road. And when you're starting to put your people out there like that, and you're out there working and you're seeing more trees fall here and there, you have to think about your people's safety. So you have to look at that wind speed and say, at what point, what kind of risk are we going to take here, and so that's where I talk about, we talk about our responses in the different levels. That's mainly what I'm referring to there. So, it's one of those deals where we understand that it's about the citizen, that we're there to serve them and provide them the best service that we can, but we also know too that if we become part of the problem, we're not a solution for the problem, so to speak, if you know what I'm saying there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So that's why it's important to make sure everybody's on the same page, and that, there's good communication between members, and, if you kind of coordinate the district in that So, like, for example, near where I live, if there's a storm that comes through, I'll handle this area to check if it falls within the parameter. I'll go investigate it, and then I'll make a determination if we need to upgrade the response or whatever. Now, obviously, if it's a structure fire or something like that, we don't do that. But, like, any call for service that's an investigation, something of those natures, we kind of let people who live that's near that area of the call go check it out, make sure it's what we need, and that way you're not jeopardizing all of your members. You're not putting your equipment on the road unnecessarily, and because sometimes people just call because they see a tree on a power line, and is that really a risk that you want your members to take? You want everybody going out there to investigate it, and the answer to that is no. So you try and minimize your exposure so that when you do have to go out, everybody's there now. Everybody's doing what they should be doing. So
it's good crew resource management there, and recognizing that you don't need putting everyone in harm's way just to do some investigations. One interesting thing with storms, and I've said this in my class a few times, and this was just my take one day. We went to a call one day after a storm came through our area. I think it was a pretty good windstorm and thunderstorm, and it was summer, and we had a bunch of lines down, and we had a bunch of trees down, and we come around. I'll never forget this. We come around a corner in the fire truck. We were in an engine, and the people were all out milling around, and they were upset because a tree had come down and maybe hit a car and damaged a house. And they're upset, and they're kind of scared. They're scared. What's going to happen? There's a power line arcing and sparking, and people, to the average person, that could be scary, and they don't know what's going to happen. We come around that corner, and it was like this incredible weight was lifted off their shoulders, like Superman and Superwomen were here. And one of the neighbors even said, "Oh, it's going to be all right. The fire department's here." And even if we couldn't do anything because we had to wait for the power company to kill the power and the damage is done to the car and to the house, we might cut it up and get it out of the way. It's not like we can wave a wand and fix everything, but my gosh, that just shows the impact we do have on our communities. When they see the fire department come around the corner, they think to themselves, the good guys and gals are here. We're going to be okay. Even if you can't do anything for them, they still feel better.
and that's a great thing, I mean, and there's that expectation too, to a certain degree. They want that professional firefighter to take care of their business and to be able to give that, to be able to calm them down like that.
Even if it's just advice, even if you're just, hey, here's what we're doing. We can't maybe do this, but we can do that. We made the notification to the power company. We're going to tape it off. You'll be okay. This little arcing isn't going to, even if you just give them a little advice, oh my gosh, you're a Superman or Superwoman.
Yep, and again, that's another wonderful thing about the fire service that I love. It really is.
No, it's fantastic. And, hey, I just want to remind our listeners again, you're listening to Fire Engineering Blog Talk Radio. Thanks to all the great staff there for sponsoring these Blog Talk radios. And tonight's installment, the Professional Volunteer Fire Department, I am so honored to be joined by Chief Richard Ray. And we're going to get into some other things that he has talked about, but wanted to talk a little bit about these hurricanes. And Ed, I talked to him earlier. I have a daughter that goes to school in Wilmington, and never thought I'd be bringing her home twice in 2 years to escape hurricanes. Had a lot of fun picking on the friends I have down in that area because of it. But thank God you dodged a bullet this time, and hopefully that's it for a while, right, Chief? You did say you dodged a good bullet this year with Florian, right? Or Dorian, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I think it's Florence and Dorian. Dorian.
Yes, sir. I think we dodged it. Now, I will say that some of our friends down at the coast didn't do so well. I think Ocracoke took I don't think they did so well. I think they sustained some damage, quite a bit of damage. I think the Outer Banks, they had some flooding and stuff. But, in the big scheme of things, I think we skirted it. Yeah, absolutely. I know we did here in the Triangle, but I know that the coast, it was rough on them down there. But at the end of the day, I truly believe it could have been a whole lot worse than what it was, and I'm thankful that it wasn't any worse than what it was. But
Right.
at the end of the
They're
day,
still
it's
dealing with things on the Outer Banks and.
yeah.
Ugh.
So
Yeah, like I said, give me a blizzard. Give me a blizzard any day. Although not in October. Wait till January or so. But if anyone wants to call in and talk to the chief about his experiences and how to be better prepared for these weather emergencies, again, the number is 760-454-8852. We'd love to hear from you. So I met Chief Ray. Gosh, it's been a few years back at FDIC. I sat in on his class. That's the Volunteer Fire Department Winning on the Fireground, one of the great classes that he does. And that's actually what I wanted to originally talk about tonight when I originally asked him to be my guest on this show. But then this crazy hurricane stuff came on and came barreling in. But I had an opportunity to sit in on your class, Chief, and I really loved it. Took pages of notes. Loved the premise. I also love you acknowledged right at the beginning of the class, because I'm looking at my notes right now, that there are challenges, there are limitations in the volunteer department, but still a very real job to do. Paid volunteer, doesn't matter. Again, hurricane comes through. Hurricane's not point me in the direction of the area protected by the paid firefighters, or point me in the area of those that are protected by volunteers. No. But there's things we can still do in our volunteer fire departments to maybe make us be better prepared and operate better. And you've already talked about your buy-in about the professional message. But, I mean, right off the bat, you said something that I wrote down and highlighted. You had to have some challenges there in Creedmoor, because you mentioned you went from a relatively farming community of 2,000 or so residents to now a more suburban bedroom community with 10,000 people. That doesn't come without challenges. And I can't imagine what the changes your father has seen in his great volunteer career, right? Yes, volunteer career.
yeah.
How does Creedmoor deal with that? Like, are you still 100% volunteer?
So I would sit here and love to say that we're 100% volunteer. We like I said, we do have a few guys that staff the station through the week, because we're like a lot of volunteer fire departments. Our challenge seems to be the daytime call. You know, the call that happens during working hours, and so you know, we try and staff it. We have some members, including myself, who spend time up there during the day to staff it. And you know, it's one of those deals where some days we're great. We have a crew of 4, and then there's some days where it's just one firefighter there, you know, and so the challenges that we have, it's you know, it's when I first started in the volunteer service, you know, the challenge was water, right? That was especially in Creedmoor, in our rural area, that, you know, it was water you needed for the fire, you had to haul to the fire, because we were very limited with hydrants, and so that was the challenge. And if you called mutual aid, the mutual aid was bringing you we call them tankers here in North Carolina. They would bring you a tanker, and they would haul water for you. And now the change has morphed into we need personnel. That's where the big need is now. And you know, some of the changes that we've seen is that, you know, used to structure fire call, believe it or not, and this hasn't been terribly long ago, it was one fire department. And then thankfully the chiefs of the county that I live in, they got together and they recognized the need that, you know what, we need to be automatically mutual aid. They had mutual aid agreements, that kind of stuff, but we need to be automatic. In other words, when that fire comes in, we need to be dispatched with the primary department. So we were getting 2 fire departments. And then, again, as things change, now we're at 3 fire departments coming, and that has been, believe it or not, that has been probably, for me, one of the greatest impacts that I've seen to the way we provide service, because we're actually getting some numbers there. And it's again, that we talk about preparation, that front end agreement of mutual aid, that, look, you know, this is what we need you to bring, right? The chiefs here, they get together and they lay out the guidelines as far as how they want to be dispatched, that kind of stuff from our communication center. But at the end of the day, we still have to get with our mutual aid departments and say, look, so this time of a 24-hour period, this daytime, we're struggling for people. Y'all are too. How are we going to help each other? What resources are we going to give?
Right.
And you have to get together and you have to talk about it and you have to train for it. And so by adding that third fire department, it really helped with our staffing levels. And not that we were terribly staffed, but when two fire departments put 6 or 8 people there, that's just not enough people to do what has to be done if you have a working
fire. Not at all.
And so that third, yes, sir. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
And that third department now gives us the numbers. It puts us in a range where we can get some stuff done. We can do the suppression. We can do the overhaul. We can establish RIT teams. We can ventilate appropriately.
Yep.
Where it's coordinated. So it's and those to me are small victories that we've gained. But too, the growth of going from, and I think this is one of the biggest impacts that we fight, is that going from a farming community to more of a bedroom suburban community is the lack of people wanting to volunteer, the lack of people wanting to participate in their local volunteer fire department. There for a while, I'm not exactly the youngest man out there, but there for a while, I was one of the youngest guys on the fire department, and it was a little scary for me because, we had, as with any volunteer fire department, the age range can be as low as 18 years old to, some volunteers in their 70s are still going at it, and God bless them for it. But at the end of the day, if you don't have some new blood coming in, if you don't have some participation coming in, the lifeline of your department can be cut very short. So the big challenge that we
challenge
face
in America right now. Big challenge is the age. You're right.
And now from the age to people just not wanting to participate, not wanting to be involved. And I understand why, right? They have families, they have kids who are in the events, and they don't have time to give to the fire department because we have the standards that we have in place just to be able to do this great profession. And those challenges are very warranted, right? Because it's there to protect the firefighter. But when are they going to come to train? They got to make time for the kids in their events, time to do the family stuff. I mean, all that stuff is so important in a person's life. It's trying to find that balance. And, so recruitment for us has been the biggest challenge. And that's where our junior program really benefited us as an organization because we were able to – kids were interested in the fire service. And they would come in and you give them those tangible things that firefighters do. You let them hold a hose. You let them do some very basic fundamental things to prepare them for that day when they finally can respond to a call because, before the age of 18, they really can't respond to calls and help you out. But you build that skill set in them, and then you build that value of, I'm serving my community. The reason why I'm here is because I'm serving others. I'm serving someone in their time of need, and getting them to embrace that. I think that's one of the things that kind of hooks them, and then they get to experience. Okay, wow, this is a lot of fun stuff. I get to force doors. I get to cut roofs. I get to flow water. I get to do a lot of the fun stuff. And that they start to really embrace the service. And so for us, the junior program has been huge for us. Now I will tell you, it ebbs and flows, right? I mean, you're going to go through. We go through phases where we get them in, they graduate, they stay on the department. Some of them go to college. Some of them stay locally and go to the community colleges in the area, and we're able to retain them. And then some we lose. But then you get, it might be a year to 18 months, and now you get a new crop in. It's almost like it's a new crop that's grown out of the
You're
school.
absolutely right. You're hoping to get a few years out of them, and they're helpful, and for those few years they contribute, and then they move on, and hopefully you bring it. The key is what? Keeping it backfilled. Hopefully they keep bringing them in.
And again, that's one of the things that you when you're dealing with our age is 14. That's the age that we allow an individual to become a junior firefighter, and you know as good as anybody that we have to be very careful what we allow them to do around the fire station, that kind of stuff, because one, we don't want them to get hurt, but we want them to embrace the job and understand the challenges that they face. And so I think we all learn the basics. That's where everything is built from. And one of the things that another aspect that we have done in our organization is that we've changed the way we do our new firefighters, and whether they're junior or whether they come in at 25 years old, everybody has to do what we call a rookie book, if you will, where we vet a skill set. And that's another key element that has helped, I think, improve our service delivery, in that we're checking people off, we're vetting, and we're also giving them an expectation of, look, if you want to be a part of this, we want you to be a part of it, but understand there's a certain amount of skills that you have to know and be able to do, and this is what you've got to accomplish. And I don't know about from the Buffalo area or whatever, but here in North Carolina, one of the big things is that all of in our area, the rookie firefighters wear orange helmets, Chief, and so they call them pumpkin heads. So the big thing is that everybody, the new guys, they want to get out of the orange helmets and get into a black helmet, and I think that's a wonderful thing. But again, it doesn't come without expectation. It doesn't come without some job knowledge, because you want them to be able to function. They've got to be able to help you. If they come on your Fireground and they can't help you, they're nothing more than a spectator. And a lot of times they're in the way. So this rookie book has helped us. You're right. This rookie book has helped us go from not having spectators, but to having functional people who can support that interior operation, whether it's footing a ladder to just giving some slack at the front porch with a hose line. Now,
do you allow different categories of membership? In our area, some companies call scene support, where they can maybe not interior firefighter qualified, but they can do things on the outside, like you just said, raise a ladder, foot a ladder, carry equipment, things like that. Do you have different categories of membership, or does everyone have to be a certified interior frontline firefighter?
So that's the beautiful part about the volunteer fire service, is that everybody, I believe, they have their specialty, right? I'm a firm believer that not everybody that joins the volunteer fire department is always going to be an interior firefighter, right? I think for some that's not how they want to contribute. I think it's an important aspect that they should know, but they may not be your go-to firefighter to go inside and do interior work. And what we do is we call it 1403 here in our area. And what that means is that I'm sure you're familiar with NFPA 1403, the standard there for live fire, and there's a block of classes that you have to meet the objectives, as it says in the standard. To be an interior firefighter, you've got to meet these objectives. You've got to have taken these disciplines and meet the assigned objectives of those disciplines. And I mean, it goes from fire behavior to ventilation to water supply to building construction to extinguishers, hose streams and appliances, so forth, so on, all the way down. And so what we do is we typically say, okay, you wear an orange helmet. You're not an interior firefighter until you complete that 1403, those 1403 objectives. And that's kind of how we laid out our rookie book. So that the benefit there is that they're not just achieving a skill set just to be on the fire department. They're achieving a skill set to actually be able to perform the job. And, so that's the push for everybody in our organization. I would love to tell you that we're 100% on that, but let's be honest here, we're not. And that's okay. Again, there are some that want to contribute and they don't want to do anything but direct traffic. And I'm thankful for that member because that member is needed. But that's to me, that's a beautiful part of the volunteer fire service. And so for us, we kind of laid it out in a rookie book. And we, if you want to be on the fire department, you have to complete the rookie book within, I believe it's 18 months from your date of joining. And that's a very liberal time frame because that's an easy accomplishment. But the other thing that we push is that, don't just meet the objectives. Get your certifications in these classes because that propels you to almost 2/3 of your firefighter certification. So you get them to that point and you're like, well, I don't need but 6 or 7 more classes and I'm a certified firefighter for the state of North Carolina. And that in itself, that's huge too. And then if a firefighter comes on and they have that certification in Creedmoor, we still make them do a rookie book, but it's more of a skills check off to make sure that yes, you are in fact what you say you are. And plus it's also a little bit of that whole that rite of passage that we have in the fire service, where you don't just roll up in the fire in a fire department and go straight to driving a truck, so to speak, or straight into your firefighting. Right. You have to prove yourself, that kind of stuff. So that's what the rookie program does for us, and that works.
And the other thing too, you want to be a director of traffic or something like that? Absolutely. And here's what I tell them. Just be the absolute best traffic director there is. Be a profession of that part, or be a professional at that part of the operation. Whatever it is you're responsible for when you join your volunteer fire department, be the best at it. Whether it's frontline firefighting, maybe you're a driver, great. Be the best driver there is. And as members age, I think we have I think there's a nice professional way in the volunteer service to let members age gracefully into different roles and ranks. It's not always easy to admit, okay, I'm going to be 70, maybe I don't want to be an interior firefighter anymore, but we need to teach people to still respect the 70-year-old as long as they're still fulfilling whatever the minimum requirements are and doing whatever job it is they're responsible for. Let's still respect them and understand, that they want to stay a member of this department and contribute in some way. But because they're not a frontline firefighter anymore, it does not diminish their value. Or even a 25-year-old who maybe just wants to do scene support or do driving. Their value should still be appreciated because
absolutely
we need people. I love the line you used, too, about the challenge 50 years ago was water. The challenge today is personnel and the embracing of the auto aid. And you reminded me of something when you mentioned auto aid. Our area is going quite big now with auto aid for confirmed fires and things. But my observation was you need to train together. You can't just put people on your run card and not have a plan. Because here's where, to me, I'd like your opinion on this, but to me, this is where dysfunction can rear its ugly head, and the volunteers can look like they're tripping over each other. There's got to be a plan knowing, okay, if the fire's in your district and we're second due, here's what our assignment should be. If we're third due, here's what our assignment should be. I should know the equipment you're bringing. You should know the equipment I'm bringing. And the way to do that, right, work together, train together, have a plan ahead of time so it's seamless. Even though the names on the trucks might be 2 different names or 3 different names, to the average bystander, it's one operation, one department.
Absolutely, and you said it best. It needs to be. You've got to train with them. The other thing is that it's identifying what your needs are. This is what you're going to bring to me. This is what I need you to do when you get here. Those might seem as trivial things, but when you look at the big overall picture, those are the critical components that really determines whether you're going to be successful or unsuccessful on this Fireground. And that whole seamless piece you're talking about, because I think about in our area, I've lived in my volunteer area my entire life. So the mutual aid agencies that I run with, I know a lot of the people on them simply because I grew up here. But from time to time, there's new people that come in, and I don't want to see somebody for the first time on a fire, especially if I'm operating inside, because I may not know. It's simple things such as communication. If I say something, do they understand what I'm asking them to do or telling them to do? Or if they're asking me or telling me to do something, do I understand what it is they're saying? And that training on the front end, that helps get you past those. Well, this is a strange firefighter to me, right? Once we've trained together and we've got some sweat equity together, then we can work together really when it's on the line for us. And so you're right, that training, you've got to get out, you've got to identify the challenges and what you want them to do. And one of the things that I talk about in my class is when we talk about mutual aid is, I think about a RIT scenario or a RIT situation, that down firefighter. We all know that the down firefighter statistics tell us first 7 to 8 minutes of any operation, but at the end of the day, I've got to know too that the mutual aid companies I'm responding with, that they've been trained in removing down firefighters, that kind of and that I understand what their capabilities are, what their equipment can do, that they know what our capabilities are, and that I can do the same thing for them because I go to fires with them too. So it's something that we have to embrace in the volunteer service, because you're right. What we don't want to do is we don't want to give the impression that we're tripping over each other. We want it to be a seamless operation. Just because there's trucks there that's got different names on them, the operation still goes smoothly. And that's what the citizen deserves. That's what they deserve.
Yeah.
They deserve that seamless operation where it's professional, it's positive attitudes, it's doing the best that you can for them with knowledge and skill and technical competence. I mean, that's really what they deserve.
And you think you're doing a good job maybe because you're doing auto aid and you think you're really serving the community, but if you're not training together, establishing some basic, like you said, common communication methods so you're on the same page, that whatever it is you use, whether it's 10 codes or plain talk, it's just everyone's on the same page. You know the equipment, like you said, even the people, it all just paid such huge dividends. And
yes, sir.
And it's important, and I witnessed it because we had an auto aid not long ago, and one of the trucks, we had to get on the radio and talk about where we wanted them positioned and what we wanted that particular rig to do. But if we had talked about it ahead of time, maybe next time we won't have to do that because it'll just be seamless, and that incoming mutual aid rig will know, okay, Snyder, which is my department, okay, they're there first, so we know now we're going to get a feed for them or whatever it is. But you talk about it ahead of time, it goes seamless, and now we're not tripping over each other. And that maybe now we don't even have to have as much radio communication because people just know. They just know. And,
That's right.
When you talk about manpower, I see a lot of people are starting to do, whether it's volunteer or paid, duty crews. So you mentioned during the day you do have some staffing. How many would be on duty? Is it one firehouse, one volunteer firehouse, Creedmoor?
Yes, sir. Right now we have just one fire station, and the duty crews that we do have, they vary from day to day. Some days,
paid,
like I said,
paid duty crews.
Well, when I say paid, they receive a stipend for the day.
Okay.
And so
it's not a career for him. It's just a stipend.
Right, that's correct.
Not,
and so
okay.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where we're really trying to make a conscious effort to make sure that we have coverage. You know, the big thing for us is Monday through Friday, kind of that 8 to 5, if you will, time frame. And, you know, some days we do really good, Chief. We can have as many as 4 people there, which is really good because I feel like you can get something going with 4 firefighters. But then there are those days too where it's just one firefighter there, and that firefighter gets the truck out, and you have an idea about who's going to respond because you know who's working where and you know who's in town. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we really try and pride ourselves in is we really try and communicate among the members about who's in town, who's not in town, that kind of stuff, so that you have an idea because – you know, at the end of the day, the worst thing you can do is pull up at a fire and not have the personnel to effect a rescue. Yeah, and so, you know, that's one of the things that we've really tried to work on. Again, is just making sure that we know who's in town, who's not. You know, my dad, he works in a shop. He works on stuff all the time, and he's right across the street. So about every day, you know, he's around if you need him. But there are those days where he's not. And so, you know, if you know that going in, you can also get some resources coming to you on the front end. If the way our system is that usually if our officers have radios. If an officer is coming, you're going to hear them. They're going to kind of check in with you on the radio so that you know they're coming. But at the end of the day, if you don't hear anybody, you know, you get those resources coming on the front end from a mutual aid department, and that's one of the things that we've really done is we've really worked hard on trying to mend those relationships because I can remember a time, Chief, early in my career where mutual aid was almost unheard of because people were so territorial, and I'm thankful that we've got out of that here in my area, and that there's really a conscious effort to work together, no matter what's on the side of the truck, and that we're there to help. We're not there to judge. We're not there to do anything other than help. And
that's what the citizens want.
Amen. That's what they expect. And so it's like I said, those have been our challenges. But yeah, our duty crews, if you want to call them that, they vary. And like I said, it started out a couple years ago, and it was really one firefighter there doing it. God bless him because he was there about every day that he wasn't working his career job. And, you know, it's one of those deals where, you know, he's got to have a break too. And as things have improved and you know, some more of the membership, they meet the because we put certain certifications if you are going to do like a duty crew type deal during the day and get that stipend. There's certain requirements as far as what we want you to have in terms of certifications and abilities to be able to do. And, you know, that's one of the things that I think too has helped progress our organization in that, you know, people want to be a part of that daytime help that we have. And it's been believe it or not, it's been very positive for us. And I'll be the first to tell you too, that I was very hesitant on it because I've seen some other agencies really close to us that they made the transition from volunteer to combination to where they're all paid now. And that was not what I never wanted that. And I don't want that for Creedmoor because the volunteer fire service is just something that I love, and that's something that I believe has a tremendous. You can't put a value on it, and it's part of my heritage, you know. And so it's something. I just love the volunteer service, and so I wanted to keep it that way, and it has worked for us thus far, and there have been times where
Chief?
yes sir.
And I got to make sure this comes out the right way. Sometimes the answer people throw out all the time with the challenges we have, and let's face it, the challenges are very well documented. In addition to less people volunteering, the average age increasing of the volunteer, the call dynamics, the type of calls we're going on, the amount of calls. I mean, the challenges are there. And to a lot of people, their simple answer is just go paid, just go paid, just go paid. And my simple response is, A, going paid isn't always the answer because can the area afford it? And B, even if they can afford a couple of firefighters, can they afford what you really need to get a well-run operation up and running, which is bodies, bodies, bodies. I see so many areas that have gone paid, and there's 2 firefighters on the rig. And they still have to call mutual aid, which is probably coming from volunteers. It's not as easy as people think just to say, go paid. You need people. And if you're not doing it right, then why don't go? I know paid departments around us, 6 people or 8 people on duty. That's great. I'm not criticizing them at all. God bless them. It's fantastic. But they get a good structure fire. They don't have enough people.
Yeah, and that was several years back. We had talked about it because we were seeing the changes, and there was a concern that getting people to volunteer. We were embarked upon a time where there was we were concerned. We weren't worried. It's just that we were concerned, and we were trying to get on the front end of it. And the paid staff was a solution, and they wanted to do 1 firefighter because that's what they could afford. And I was dead set against 1 firefighter because I don't believe that 1 firefighter can make a difference. All you're going to do is get the truck out. That's the only guarantee. But what I didn't want to do was put that firefighter in a position with a citizen, and they pull up, and there's this house ripping, and mom's standing in the front yard screaming, my child's inside. Now that
right.
Firefighter's got to make a decision, and I fought it tooth and nail that if we were going to do it, 4 people at a minimum was the only way to roll, and the money piece of it. It's funny how things work out. The money piece didn't really work out, and then we kind of had some membership that increased, and we made it through that trying time, and like I said, now with some of these junior firefighters that are turning 18 and that kind of stuff, and they've got their training, they're helping staff the trucks during the day, and you can go out and do training and stuff with them and really drive that, create that passion in them, and drive that inspiration of this is the greatest profession there is, and
right.
And it's really been it's worked for us.
And make that part of the rookie book too, right? With the junior program, just get them to just absorb all the great things there are to absorb being involved in the fire service, and let them just really get filled with that passion. And I want to remind our listeners, while I can, that I want to thank them for listening in to tonight's installment of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department on Fire Engineering Blog Talk Radio. Having a great conversation covering a lot of things with Chief Richard Ray. If you would like to call in, ask questions of the Chief, please feel free at 760-454-8852. And Chief Ray does a great presentation called The Volunteer Fire Department Winning on the Fireground. And I've got pages and pages of notes from that presentation. There's no way we can get into everything tonight. But, Chief, you talk about winning in the fireground, and you talk about some very key things we can do. And to me, and I can, from your presentation, I know you share this thought, there's winning on the fireground, and there's also winning in the firehouse. We've got to motivate and our volunteers, and like we talked about a little bit ago, understand there's different levels of interest among our members. But what can we do about the very important fireground, an emergency scene? What are some of the things that we can do to put together a well-run operation that's focused and driven and everyone's on the same page. You outlined some very key things. Can you cover some of those with us?
Sure. Some of the things that I think, you know, that we have to start out with are number one, we have to make sure that the basics are understood, right? That the skill set is such that it's fundamentally sound and that it's a solid foundation and a basic skill set, basic firefighting. Our basic skills, I believe, is truly what keeps us alive on the fireground. And then so from there you build into, okay, I got this strong set of skills. Now I get there, you know, the fireground is so unforgiving. And when you get there, your size up has got to be, you've got to be as accurate as you can with it. You've got to understand fire behavior. You've got to understand the building construction piece. Where's the fire going to travel to? How is it affecting the building? How is the building affecting the fire? You know, where do I need to position the line? Do I have a rescue? You know, how am I going to get the search done too? And how am I going to get this fire out? And in the volunteer world, you may be looking at 3 or 4 people trying to do those very basic things. Oh, and by the way, I got to have somebody that's in command that's going to lead this incident, not just manage it, but they've got to be able to lead it. And so right out the gate, there's a lot of things that have to get done in a short amount of time, but it takes people to do it. And so how do you accomplish that? So I think some of the first steps that we have to do outside of that good size up, understanding some fire behavior, building construction, is getting that first line into operation and getting good water on the fire, because I truly believe that good water on the fire takes care of the problem, right? The problem is the fire itself. So all the issues that the fire is going to cause, if we can get good water on it, I think we're addressing the issue appropriately. And, you know, yeah, your search might not be as thorough because you have 2 people on the line and you're trying to make a push on that fire. You're probably searching as you're going. But once we get good water on the fire and we stop the progression of the fire, then we can start getting into some other fireground needs, such as completing that primary search, right? Searching off the line, searching the fire route. And I think that if your challenge is staffing and you have minimal staffing, I think that your priority has to be you've got to make a decision. Are you going to search or are you going to do the fire? And I think for a lot of times for us in rural settings and that kind of stuff, we got to get water on the fire and search as we go. And we have to commit to that line. I think we have to get that line into operation. And so for me, that's kind of where we go. And I know that we've got to search quick too. That's a critical element. And we don't always have the privilege of knowing if there's a victim inside or not. And so, you know, years ago, I heard Chief Lasky say something that I thought was really good. Was, you know, he said, "We're the fire department. We're the ones who say when the fire's out and the building is searched." And, you know, I've tried to take that with me through my fire service career, and that's kind of how I view things. You know, we say when the fire's out and we say when the building is searched. And to me, those are our 2 top priorities: fire extinguishment and search. And trying to get those done, you want to do them together, obviously, if you can. But if you're waiting on mutual aid, I mean, we can be aggressive in many ways on the firegrounds. Aggressive is not just interior firefighting, as some people seem to throw that around. Is that some firefighters think that aggressiveness is just interior. Aggressiveness is your attitude and your actions on the fireground. And we can be aggressive in what it is we're doing and be effective while we're trying to.
Absolutely.
If
aggressive,
we're waiting
not
on
reckless.
members to get there. That's exactly right. Aggressive, not reckless.
You know,
and so
big difference. Big difference.
Absolutely.
And,
so you know, So
you
for me,
also talk
that's
in you talk about one thing that can help with this, with these priorities, size up and getting that first line in operation, water on the fire. You talk about the importance of a good, I think you call it a playbook. I kind of use that line too in my presentation, but you got to have a playbook. I mean, think of a football team. It's football season, and think of a football team that doesn't have a playbook that they practice to, and the quarterback gives a couple key words and everyone knows what to do. We can still train our volunteers to a certain expectation via a playbook, can we not?
absolutely. Operational guidelines is where it's at too, and the funny thing about it is that, a lot of times you'll hear some people say, well, I don't know what, it's training night at the fire station. I don't know what we're going to do, or they're struggling for something to do. Train on your operational guidelines because that is your playbook. And I think the operational guidelines, that kind of gives us a roadmap too. It gives us a map of how we're going to address the incident and what we need to be doing. And absolutely. And I don't think your operational guidelines have got to be super in depth. There's a certain amount that has to be in there, but you don't have to go all crazy with it. Good water on the fire, good line positioning. Make sure that if it's a commercial building, we want to go with the bigger line, the 2.5, not the 1 3/4. Little things like that can help guide the firefighters, especially those. The operational guidelines for me are absolutely huge for those that are supporting the scene, because then if they truly understand operational guidelines, they know how to support that interior work that has to be done. And so for me, I want my outside firefighters, the ones that are supporting me, I want to make sure they know that playbook, those operational guidelines, as much as anybody.
Right. Put a good playbook together and train to it. And you know what else is good? It prevents a lot of, it might prevent unnecessary radio traffic. Your firefighters get off the rigs. They know what they have to do. You don't, as the chief or officer leading them, you don't have to micromanage. Like you said, it's a big building. They know they got to pull the 2.5. It's a car fire. What's your playbook for that? 99% of the time you're going to pull the front line off the bumper maybe. Whatever it is, train to the playbook. And then ego chief or ego leader, God forbid you're not there, they know what to do. You're not micromanaging from miles away or second guessing, and you've trained them to the playbook. Ditch the ego. Now let them go do the play. Go whatever the play called. Let them do it. And I think we have trouble sometimes just accepting that and getting these good playbooks put together. But my gosh, will it pay off in the long run for a well-run, functional department? Avoids a lot of dysfunction by having a good playbook and training to it.
Absolutely. And, one of the, I had a chief that I worked for years ago that, he talked about the Fireground operation, how it's like an orchestra, everything just kind of comes together. And when everything's coming together doing like it should, it's beautiful music. Well, that's what that playbook does for us, and what kind of pride would that give to the leadership of a volunteer fire department to know that, okay, all right, so that may not be a chief there from that organization, but they know that Fireground is being run accordingly, just like it should be, as if they were there. Even without them, it's going like it's supposed to. And in those terms, I mean, that's where you win. That's really where the winning takes place. Is that, from a leadership standpoint, your leadership is not there, but things are going like it's supposed to. That's beautiful. That's what we should be achieving for, because as good as I do, that chief's not going to always be there.
Right. And, I got to tell you, I got to talk from personal experience here. Just one quick war story. People love war stories. But so in my area, our chiefs in my department, we do 5 years. You have to get elected, but you serve for a maximum of 5 years as the chief. the biggest fire to strike in my 5 years. I had some good fires. I guess you could call it fortunate, but not for the poor people living in the fires. But in my career, my 5-year career as chief, I had several significant working fires every year. And the biggest one in my 5-year career, I dispatched it at the alarm office, my paid job. And it was a commercial building fire, which I'd always loved training for 2.5, because I'm a little guy and I love doing the 2.5-inch training to show it's not about how big you are, it's all technique. But anyway, biggest fire in my 5-year career as chief, commercial building fire, right next door to our firehouse, coincidentally. And I dispatched it and took the phone call from the people reporting the fire. And I can't lie, I was pissed. That's the strongest word I've ever used in my 4 years of doing these shows. But I was P.O.'d, miserable, upset. You can hear it probably in my voice as I dispatched it, and I was mad. It's just a nasty commercial building fire. And the next day I had a senior firefighter say, Chief, I know you're upset, but look at it this way. Everything went flawlessly. Everyone acted and reacted the way that we've trained to, and he just made me feel so much better. My assistant chief ran the fire. He did a great job, competent, capable, fantastic assistant chief and officers that were there that night. And it took me a while, but then it sank in that this is what we've trained to. This is a playbook that we've trained to, and we've worked hard, and it paid off. And even though I wasn't there, and so I take solace in that. It took a while, but it comforted me. And but my gosh, it's something for all of us to learn from. That you don't have to be there if you're doing your job the right way and training to that playbook standard. So I thought that was a good lesson. Even my wife told me that too, because she knew I was mad.
Well, the one thing a firefighter hates to miss is a good fire, So, but
absolutely.
But at the end of the day, that there's a lot of comfort there knowing that what, you take care of business, and again, that operational guidelines, that playbook, that brings not only comfort to that incident commander, but it gives comfort as well to the firefighters themselves, because you know what, they have an idea now about what to do. Even if they're new to the job, if they've been exposed to those operational guidelines, they can start putting the pieces of the puzzle together and move forward. So, absolutely. And it's the Fireground is so dynamic, it's so unforgiving. The ability to identify the issues, prioritize, and get the job done, that's the mark of a professional fire department. And I've been very, very fortunate that I've seen that. I've seen that here. I got to brag a little bit. I've seen that here in Creedmoor. And I would love to tell you that, it's something great I did as a training officer, or as something my dad did great as a chief, or my grandfather did years ago, but it's not. It's about the team. It's about the entire team. Because without the team, our fire departments are nothing. And so it's about a group of people who've come together for a common goal.
Mm-hmm.
To work together, and they accomplish it.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't say, in my experience, in my example that I just talked about, I didn't invent the playbook. I just kept it going. That playbook had been around for years by the great chiefs and officers that came before me over the years, and I just towed the line and made sure it continued with the staff that I was in charge of for the 5 years, and our current chiefs are doing the same thing, and there's a lot to be said for that. So, Chief, I want to just finish up with one other thing, but I just want to tell our listeners, if you have any questions for the Chief, please, again, you can still get us at 760-454-8852. We're going to be wrapping things up here in a little bit from this episode of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department, and we'd love to hear from you if you have any questions. But, again, Chief Ray has a great presentation, the Volunteer Fire Department winning on the Fireground, and we've covered a lot of things about how we can be better on the Fireground, how we can bring people in and review things via a rookie manual, make sure they have certain skill sets that are important to the job, understanding the different maybe learning curves of our members, interest levels of our people, getting younger members in, starting them off with that passion for the fire service by bringing in junior members. The importance of people on the Fireground can certainly help us win on the Fireground, and having good auto aid in place, but not just on paper, auto aid that you train with and get to know what they bring and their people, and maybe work out. Maybe they're part of the playbook where everybody knows where they fit in the equation. That is so, so very important. Winning on the Fireground by understanding the basic skill set of size up, fire behavior, building construction, training to getting that first line in operation, water on the fire ASAP, because as we all know, when the fire goes out, most problems go away. The importance of a good, solid playbook that we train to and people know it like the back of their hand and can prevent micromanaging and unnecessary orders being given on the radio. Why do we always have to tell people where to park at a house fire? That should be all figured out ahead of time, unless what I say there's compelling reasons, but just one example there of something we can put in the playbook so we don't have to take up airtime doing that. The importance of being aggressive both inside the fire and also in whatever job it is we are charged with, not reckless but aggressive, certainly important. All of that contributing to winning the Fireground. How do we win the firehouse, Chief? Let's finish up with that. I hear, and I'm sure you do too, and it pains me. It pains me when people hate their firehouse and have bad things to say about what's going on at their firehouse. I talked on one of my shows, I think my last show or a show before that, about cliques in the firehouse. How do we build a winning team? How do we energize our team? How do we get them all focused on the same mission? And how do we get them to push aside any of these insignificant little, things that bother them and just get people focused? And let's win our firehouse in addition to the Fireground. How do we do that? What have you experienced?
So that's to me that's the other side of the coin, right?
Right.
Because you know as good as I do that sometimes within the volunteer organization that egos and drama and arrogance and all that kind of stuff. I think that it never promotes anything other than tension, and it's like a disease, and it spreads, because when things are bad and nobody's getting along, that's when the issues arise, right? So how do we win the firehouse? One of the things that I think it starts with is that, if you're a chief officer, I think you have to have a vision, right? A vision of your organization and where you want to go to. And then you have to involve your members, right? You have to involve them. You have to involve them in that vision and the direction that we want to move as an organization. And we have to remember, too, that everybody brings something to the table. Everybody's a contributing member, like we said it earlier. No matter what your job is on the Fireground, you're contributing to that Fireground. Be the best that you can be. The same thing goes at the firehouse. Don't be that firefighter. Don't be that one individual that's constantly nagging, that's never showing up, that's all you're doing is complaining. Get in there and work to find a solution to problems that arise, because there's problems in our organizations that arise daily. Rather than we talk about how when we respond to calls and driving like we should, we don't want to create more of a problem. Well, let's take that same approach in the firehouse. Drop the ego. Understand that it's not about you. I think if we could get individuals to understand that it's not about them, that it's about something much greater than them. It's about the fire service. It's about your community. It's about your organization. And understand that, yes, your involvement is critical to its success. And then I think we have to set expectations, right? We have to provide some structure there. This is what's expected of you. This is what I want you to do, because let's face it, when my kids were younger, if things were not structured, they'd run wild. And it's kind of the same thing in the fire station, if you will, that if there's not structure there for them, be it on the call, be it within the organization about how we're just going to do things around the station, I think we get ourselves into we get ourselves into problems. But the biggest thing for me, and this is a hard one, but the biggest thing for me that I see as a key to winning the firehouse back is this thing called humility. At the end of the day, I'm not naive enough to think that, I'm X, Y, and Z firefighter. That's not the point. Be humble. Humility drowns out ego. Humility will bring the team together. And understanding that, you know what? That humility, being humble, you would be surprised at the dividends that it pays in the firehouse. And too many times, firefighters can't get past their own ego or swallow their pride because they're so bent on, I've got to be right, or I've got to be this, or I've got to be that. You know what? Again, it's not about you. It's about those that we serve. It's about our community. And when we focus on truly what it's about and not ourselves, that's when I think we start to see improvements around the firehouse. And then lastly, I think as from a leadership standpoint, I think you've got to encourage balance too. You've got to encourage balance within the organization. You've got to encourage balance between home life and work life. And those few things, as simple as they may seem, I think is how we win the firehouse back. And just remember that everybody brings something to the table. We're a team. It's not about one person. And I can tell you that some of the issues that we faced in our organization, it was because some people thought that they were in control and that it was their way or the highway, and that didn't help our organization. That broke us down. And so that's where I see it. Remember, it's a team concept. A little bit of humility goes a long ways, and understand that it's not about you. It's about the community that you serve in the organization, and about this thing called the fire service, which is much greater than all of us. So that's kind of how I see it.
When we started off, talked about how much we love the fire service, and I think anyone listening to the show loves the fire service. And I said this just the other day. I was talking to a firefighter about my leadership I have a leadership presentation that I like to do, leadership success in the volunteer firehouse. And I'm no expert. I just pass on my experiences, what I've learned. That's all we can ever do, right? Is pass on what we've learned and maybe what we've experienced ourselves. And I'm looking at my bookshelf. I'm in my home office right now, and I'm looking at no less than 20 leadership books that I've read over the years. Military leadership books, politicians that have written leadership books, if you can believe there are some, but yes, there are. Business leaders and business icons that have written leadership books, and certainly great fire service leaders that have written leadership books. You know what? I said just the other day to a firefighter at the firehouse, 90% of those books have a lot of the same material. And I can tell you 100% of the books have this piece of advice, and you nailed it, Chief. And I'm going to end with this. Ditch the ego. Ditch the ego. Egos get in the way of any natural ability you might have. Egos and arrogance destroy firehouses. Get rid of the ego. You nailed it. And I want to... Jason Hovelman, I don't know if you had a chance to meet him or not. Great fire chief, leader, wrote the book No Exceptions Leadership. He's at FDIC every year as well. Just the other day he posted something on his Facebook page, and I just want to read it here. And it's so important. And again, to win the firehouse, here's another thing you can do. and we've summed it up earlier, but he says it perfectly. You can't compare your members to you. You have to compare them against the established standards and the expectations, you said that, Chief, and the expectations along with their own progress. It is not realistic for all of your members to be as passionate and into the job as you are. Everybody's at a different level in their career at different times. But you can share your passion, you can show them the benefits of that passion and engagement, but you can't ram it down their throats. I thought that was so well said. So well said.
It is. And you know, Chief Hoffman, he's great people, great individual, and I have that book. So yes, but you're absolutely right. That he summed it up really well. That was a great way of because that's truly today's fire service. And you know, I know we're about ready to wrap it up, and I just number one, I want to tell you, Chief, man, this has been great. Thank you for having me. I love talking shop. I love the volunteer fire service. I love the career fire service too. And it's humble to be a part of something so much bigger than what I could have ever imagined. It's a great thing, and I just appreciate you having me on tonight. I will tell you that you know, if anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn, all the social medias. I'm out there. Look me up. If you don't,
and I'll be remiss if I didn't say you're going to be at FDIC teaching again. Correct? You'll be at FDIC next year. Are you doing Winning on the Fireground, or is it a different class this year?
So this year I'm doing a different class. It's along the same lines, but it's going to be Tuesday afternoon from 1:30 to 5:30. Please join me. It's tactical considerations for the volunteer fire department. And
awesome.
What we're going to talk about is I got 15 things that I think are critical to the Fireground operation for volunteers, and we're going to dissect them a little bit, and we're going to talk about them. And then I've got some other things that I think are just what I call incidentals for the volunteer fire service that I think that sometimes we struggle with, and it's just some commentary on how I think we can address those things, and in doing so, it improves our Fireground. So I'm excited about it. Please come see me.
You know what? Here's what we can do. Listeners out there. There's a double header for you. My class will be Tuesday morning from 8 till noon. You can go have lunch, and then you can go to I'm going to be in your class. I can guarantee you that. I'll go to Chief Ray's class. A whole day of volunteer fire service focused training, and it's not even we engage the audience and talk to the audience, and we can learn from you, and you can learn from us. That's a great day right there, and that reason enough is the reason to go to FDIC, Chief.
Absolutely, and I'm going to be in your class as well, so I'm looking forward to it. You know, again, thanks to Chief Halton, Virginia, and Diane, and all the folks at Clarion. They like you said, what a humbling opportunity, what an honor it is to be able to share at the greatest fire conference on earth, and you know, just thankful, very thankful, and thankful to be a part of this show tonight. Man, I have thoroughly enjoyed it. Let's do it again.
Nothing like talking shop, and I'd be happy to do it again because we barely scratched the surface of your great presentation. I've still got pages of notes I didn't get to. And if somebody did want to talk to you about maybe bringing the presentation, Winning on the Volunteer Fire Department, Winning on the Fireground, or even your new one, the tactical considerations for the Volunteer Fire Department, again, just tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you. Do you have an email address, or you just want to do it through Facebook, or what's the best way to get a hold of you, Chief?
Best way to get a hold of me can be through Facebook, or my email address is it's kind of simple. It's richard.ray74@gmail.com, and shoot me an email. Look me up on Facebook. and reach out to me. Anything that I can do to help you or your organization, I'm all about, because we're all in this together, and it's, you know, the greatest thing about the fire service is sharing. It's about sharing knowledge, sharing information, and improving the service, making it better than how we found it. So.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for everything you do for the volunteer fire service, for your passion, your enthusiasm, your professionalism, and thank you for being here with me tonight, Chief. I appreciate it so much.
You're certainly welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We'll see you down the road.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Take care.
Take care. You too, brother. Fantastic show. Fantastic show. Lots of information. I'm definitely going to have him back on a future show, because we didn't cover everything that he talks about in the great class I took with him, and he just has so much more to offer. And I just can't thank him enough for being on the show and reinvigorating everything that me personally, but just hopefully you too, about just how great it is to be in this fire service, paid, career, volunteer, it doesn't matter. It's a great service, and sometimes we got to sit back and realize just how wonderful it is. So thank you for listening in tonight. I'd like you to just remind the listeners again, if you wouldn't mind, check out my Professional Volunteer Fire Department Facebook's page if you haven't already. Give it a like. I'm trying so hard to get to 10,000 likes. I'm just shy of 9,000. So spread the word. Help me get the word out there, because I'm always posting little, hopefully, inspirational sayings and leadership lessons and articles and stories that pertain to the volunteer fire service, and success stories and challenges. And I just want to share that with more people. And if you can help me get to 10,000, that would be so great. So great. And if I can ever do anything for you, love to bring my professional volunteer presentation out to your little neck of the woods, your conference that maybe you're having, or to your firehouse, or my officer development presentation that I've put together, working on a couple others, working on one regarding clicks in the volunteer firehouse. But if I can ever help you, please, please, please reach out to me. My email, tamerrill63 at AOL.com. Again, Merrill, that's MERRILL, 63 at AOL.com, my personal email, or Facebook, the Professional Volunteer page. Heck, give me a like, or give me a friend request on my personal page. I'm on Twitter. My kids got me on Instagram. I'm kind of learning that. I don't know much about it, and I find that whatever I put on Facebook goes on Instagram, so I gotta feel my way through that. But anyway, love to hear from you. Love to hear from all you great firefighters out there. And just a great night. But it wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be right if I didn't end the show in honor and remembrance of all who were murdered on 9/11, 18 years ago tomorrow. I cannot believe, it is so hard to believe, that it's been 18 years. And time might heal some of the hurt, but the pain is still there for all of us. I know it is. You know, I mentioned today was just an absolutely beautiful day here in Buffalo. Sunny and warm, blue skies, not unlike the day of September 11th in New York 18 years ago, when firefighters began their shift or ended their shift and were thinking they were going home to enjoy the beautiful day. So many American citizens and citizens from so many other countries that were murdered that day got up and expected just to go to work and have a day like every other. And that morning certainly ended a lot different than anyone thought, by the cowardly acts of some incredibly heinous people. So as I end, please remember the 2,996 innocent victims, and of course the 343 firefighters, our brother firefighters, who died 18 years ago tomorrow, and all the poor victims who are still suffering today and dying today due to that heinous act. I hope your department is doing something to remember them, hopefully participating in a ceremony or some type of event. There's several in our area. I'm going to one tomorrow evening after I get out of work. And even if you can't, please take some time for some somber reflection, just a few moments to remember those who perished 18 years ago. You've seen the lists. You've seen the names. You know what I like to tell people to do, too? Truly honor them by reading some of their biographies, learning about who they truly were. On the fire side, there's certainly some famous names, the Patty Browns, the Andy Fredericks, Chief Ray Downey, Chief Pete Gansey, but there's so many others. Names like a Michael Lynch and Andrew Brum, Michael Brennan, Oriole Palmer, John Kelly, Robert McMahon, so many others. Names with stories, names with families, names of firefighters who loved their job and died doing what they loved that day, serving others. They deserve that from us. It's the least we can do for them. So as I end every show, I do a shout-out, usually for the volunteer side of things, but tonight my shout-out is in memory of the 343 and those who continue to die and suffer from the ill effects of that day, and all the other innocent victims murdered 18 years ago tomorrow. Never forgetting, folks, truly means never forgetting. I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. I want to thank you for listening in. If you're listening in at a future time, thank you. Please stay safe. And please, folks, remember that developing, maintaining, and upholding a professional reputation is the duty and responsibility of all firefighters, paid or volunteer. Thank you very much.